Good morning. We are in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 20, starting in verse 17. Verse 17. Now Jesus, going up to Jerusalem, took the 12 disciples aside on the road and said to them, Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death and deliver him to the Gentiles to mock and to scourge and to crucify. And the third day he will rise again. Then, bear with, the mother of Zebedee's sons came to him with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him. And he said to her, What do you wish? And she said, Grant that these two sons of mine will sit on your right hand and the other on the left in your kingdom. So, to kind of get the ball rolling, here we have these three verses about the crucifixion, and they're just kind of snuck in there. But I think it's just to remind us that as they're making their way to Jerusalem, Jesus wasn't speaking in parables. He was speaking very clearly concerning that he would be crucified. And so I just find some there's some irony here. It's a little bit funny. He will be scourged, or sorry, he'll be mocked. He'll be scourged. He'll be crucified. Oh, but Jesus, could my son sit at your right hand and your left? Like, I think there's something here. Now, I also think it's going to tie into his answer to Auntie Salome. Now, that's something I'll save for another day, maybe. But if you do your studying of the crucifixion accounts in the Gospels, you will put together that this is very, very likely. I'm sure there's room for error, but very likely this is Salome, the wife of Zebedee, the mother of James and John, and the sister of Mary, the mother of Jesus. So this was his auntie. You know how aunties get, asking favors. So she asked if her two sons can sit on the right hand and on the left. Verse 22 says, But Jesus answered and said, You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink and be baptized with the baptism that I'm about to be baptized with? And they said to him, We are able. So he said to them, You will indeed drink my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it is for those whom is prepared by my Father. And when the 10 heard it, they were greatly displeased with the two brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise it over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. Much of what we read is very straightforward, the account of what happened, and the fact that the disciples weren't happy with James and John. That makes sense too. But Jesus' response is a text that we're all familiar with, but familiarity breeds contempt, right? You know this. But how much does it really apply to your life? And do you take it into account morning, noon, and night? Is this something that you think about as you make decisions? Is this a ruling factor in how you go about your day? Jesus said that if you want to be great, which I'm going to assume he wants us to want to be great, right? I mean, it's not like he's speaking about this in a negative way. The desire to be great for God, the desire to do great things for God, right? Attempting great things for God and expecting great things from God. And so it says we need to become a servant. And if we want to be first, we need to become a slave. And we need to be more like Jesus, who didn't come to be served, but came to serve. He came in the likeness of men, right? You can go to Philippians and you can read about that, about how even though Jesus, being God, he was equal with God and he had no problem receiving, the whole considering it not robbery, right? The idea is that Jesus knew that he is equal to God, being God. I mean, that's the idea, right? And so it would not be wrong of him. It's not robbery for him. He's not stealing the glory to be worshiped and treated as God. And yet, he came in the likeness of sinful men. He came down to us and he served. And he continually did things that blew people's mind, like washing the disciples' feet, which, I mean, you might think that's kind of gross, washing feet, but there was more to it because that was very specifically the job of a low servant. Jesus broke many social rules and norms in that he did it to serve and to accommodate. Do you live like you're the slave of everyone else? That's what Jesus is asking you to do. Mind-blowing, right? That you would submit, surrender, and serve your brothers, your sisters, your husband, your kids. Now, you're called to lead in your home if you're a husband. You're called to raise your children if you're a parent. You know, we have other roles, but that doesn't change the nature of our behavior. And, you know, I was even just working on some notes for the conference I'm at on Saturday. And, you know, it's just a reminder in 1 Corinthians 8:13, therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never again eat meat, lest it makes my brother stumble. Look at that. I mean, Paul had a mentality in serving the weaker brethren. You know, a slave eats what they're told to eat, doesn't it? A slave doesn't get a menu. A slave eats what's set before them. And Paul realized as a slave, he would have to eat what the Lord said was fitting for him to eat if it was a matter of serving his brothers and sisters by not stumbling them. You know, in John's gospel, we have that beautiful section of text, John 14-16, actually John 17 as well, the high priestly prayer. But in all of this section, you see Jesus give this sermon as they walk from the upper room down to Gethsemane. And there's a few great verses in here, and I actually don't have all the locations. Verse 14, you are my friends if you do whatever I command you. Now in the next verse, verse 15, most Bibles translate this poorly. I think the NASB might be one of the few Bibles that gets it right. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I call you friends. And he goes on, well, all through this section, and much of the sections of the Bible, the word servant there is doulos. And doulos has one meaning in the Greek, and it's really not servant, it's slave. It's a slave. And so Jesus talks about, if you're my slave, you know, then you'll do what I say. And That's what we're called to be as slaves. It sounds crazy, but it's not, because we've got a good shepherd and we want to follow him. And so, as you see in Exodus 21, when the slave identifies that it has a good shepherd, well, they would take its ear over the doorpost and use it as a, the doorpost is nice and firm, and use it as a backing plate to punch in that earring. And they would decide to live for their master forever. And that's what we're called to do, to lay down our lives, to be servant of all, to be a slave. That's what we're called to do for our brothers and sisters. It's so much easier to say than do. But as you interact with your friends at church and with other people, God has called you to no less than that. To be a slave of all, as a universal command and calling to all Christians. You don't have an out. Really, the only out you have is just confessing that you're in your flesh and I don't feel like being a slave right now. That's about all we can do, is just at least confess when we're not doing what we know we're supposed to do, because we're in an ornery mood. But at the end of the day, it's looking to others and their needs and sacrificially laying our lives down for them. That means irritating people. That means people who bug you. That means when other people have been unfaithful, you continue to be faithful. You see, it's an unconditional call. It's not when things look like it's going to work out, then I'll be a servant. It's not when I really feel like it, then I'll be a slave. Slaves didn't get, right? Do slaves go to work when they felt like it? No, that means you serve and you work and you give and you pour out, even if you don't feel like it all the time. That's what he's called us to do. And I'm going to guarantee you, Jesus didn't feel like it all the time. I'll close with a reference to a show many of you have probably seen in The Chosen. I don't know what episode it is, season 2, maybe episode 2 or 3. The episode where you don't see Jesus like the entire episode. All you know is that Jesus has been healing people and praying for people. And hundreds, if not thousands of people are lined up to meet with Jesus. And you watch as the disciples are arguing and bickering and fighting around the campfire. And they're in this big old fight with each other. And then eventually you see Jesus come in and you see him exhausted, just empty. And you can tell his feet are sore just from standing and from being up all day long. And he's limping his way back to his tent. And all of a sudden, everything was put in perspective for these disciples. They see him and it's like, wow, here we are bickering, but our Lord was just serving and serving and serving. Not complaining, just knowing that he's doing the Father's will. And so let's pray that we have hearts of servants, hearts of slaves, that we would just pour ourselves out, not expecting anything in return. Doesn't matter if people say thank you. Doesn't matter if people even notice. God notices, and he is thankful. And God will be a debtor to no man. You're never going to do something with the right heart, in the name of the Lord, and not be rewarded. You're never going to get to heaven and be like, remember that one time I did that? Why did I never get? It's never going to happen. You will get to heaven and you will try and give back what he gives to you, because you'll say it's too much. And he'll say, no, it's what I want to give you for your work. And you say, no way is what I did worth this. He says, too bad. I will be a debtor to no man. For those who sow to the Spirit, they will reap one day. So keep on serving, church, even when you're tired. And hey, you're not like serving in your church. Do something about that. Find a place to give. Find a place to pour in. Many hands makes light work. And it'd be amazing in every church. I actually, a while back, had a little, I thought I was finished, right? A while back, I had this vision and thought, why not set a goal? It's like, I want to see like 90% of the people in my church body serving somewhere. Definitively, like this person does this, that person does that. Even if it's a minuscule thing, like this person empties the garbages after church. They don't do anything else, but they do that. This person is taking care of the flower bed. This person does. Because wouldn't it be great if just everyone had a little something they did? A lot would get done. A lot would get done if everyone just tried to find something small to do. So, again, find a way to serve in your church and out of your church because you've been called no less. All right. God bless you guys. I will see you guys around. Definitely not tomorrow. Gonna be gone all day at a conference in Tri-Cities. Pray for the young adults. God would do good things. I've got multiple things I'm teaching on, so gotta prepare. Gotta talk about sex and money. They gave me the practical subjects, so we'll see how the Lord puts that together. All right, I'll see you guys around.